So yesterday, Matt Lafleur talked with Tom Pelissero, NFL reporter, at the NFL annual meeting, and they sort of discussed a few different things, from the Packers' current wide receiver situation with Davante Adams now gone, and then Matt Lafleur also sort of gave his thoughts on Davante Adams being traded, of course not staying with the Green Bay Packers, which of course has been the biggest topic of discussion the past week or so, with the Packers now really lacking when it comes to wide receiver, and so we'll get into that a little bit later as well. But first off here, if we take a look at this quote here from NFL.com and Tom Pelissero, so this is on Davante Adams. Lafleur says, "Sometimes you got to make some tough decisions." Lafleur said, "Certainly appreciate everything Davante brought to our team. I mean, he is the best receiver in the National Football League. So that was a tough one for me personally and for our organization." Yes, I feel the same, Matt. And then he says, asked if there were any discussions of trying to talk Adams out of leaving. Lafleur said, "Well, there really wasn't anything to talk about. I mean, you're going through a contract negotiation, and certainly it was just one of those deals where, like I said, a lot of tough decisions had to be made." And so I think we all knew as Packers fans from last training camp when Davante Adams was talking that he wanted to become the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, and it really seemed like the Packers weren't wanting to pay him that. And as Matt Lafleur touched on, I think if the Packers had endless money, there's no question they would want to pay Davante Adams, the big bucks, and pay him all that they could. But obviously with the salary cap, it made it a little bit tougher for them to do something like that. We did hear, though, recently that the Packers did offer him more than the Raiders, and so he decided in the end to go with the Las Vegas Raiders. And so maybe that happened because maybe through the negotiations, maybe Davante Adams felt like the Packers didn't want him. I don't know exactly what he was thinking, but in the end, he decides to, go closer to family, go to the Las Vegas Raiders, join back up with Derek Carr. And so that definitely is unfortunate for the Packers. Then going on here, finishing off, touching on Davante. So here it says, Lafleur, who was hopeful to retain Adams ahead of free agency, echoed that sentiment on Sunday. "Well, I think Tay and I have a great relationship," he said. "I think there's a great mutual respect. Certainly he's a guy that's going to be tough to replace, and so you never want to let great players like that walk away from your team. But like I said, it's just one of those deals where some tough decisions have to be made. Unfortunately, in the National Football League, there's a thing called the salary cap, and you got to get below that as well. So everything factored into those decisions." So we definitely know the Packers now need to address their current, lack of wide receivers with Davante Adams no longer being here. And so then he was sort of asked about that situation, and this is what he says. "I think just like every great quarterback or quarterback in general, you want as many pieces as you can around you," Lafleur said. When asked about how Rodgers handled the trade, "Certainly there's going to be opportunity. We're still in free agency, and then we've got the draft. In my experience, there's a lot of movement that can take place between now and the start of the season." Added Lafleur, "We're going to absolutely have to add some pieces to that room, and we got to construct our offense around what we have. You can't look back, and you got to move forward." So Lafleur does touch on the fact that we still are in free agency, which would make me think that the Packers will, you would think that they would add some kind of free agent wide receiver. That's sort of my take on it. Maybe it's not one of the bigger guys that we think they maybe should. Who knows? Maybe they find some, lesser guy that maybe isn't exciting but could be a little bit cheaper that could make more sense with this Packers offense. And we all know Aaron Rodgers can't elevate anybody. I would love for the Packers to, make a move for someone like a Jarvis Landry or Julio Jones. And so I feel like they'll do something like that. We will see, but we are still in free agency. And he touched on, of course, the draft. There's lots of wide receivers. It seems like a very deep wide receiver class. And so with the Packers having 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, I would assume that they would use at least one, maybe a couple in those first couple of rounds to, solidify that situation. Hopefully they add a free agent as well. And Matt Lafleur, basically saying, yeah, I know we basically have to replace Davante Adams. I think there's no doubt in anyone's mind that that's basically the Packers' biggest need right now. And I think before this trade happened, I think for me at least, it sort of seemed like maybe the best position to add would have been maybe defensive tackle. But since after the trade, the Packers did come in and add Jarran Reed, defensive tackle, and I think that was a great addition for the Packers. And so that they bring in a veteran guy there, and so that I think they could still use a draft pick on a defensive tackle. But to have a guy like that, I think is definitely great for this team. So I think it's pretty clear the wide receiver is the biggest need right now for the Packers, and I would assume that they would address this need in many different ways. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed, feel free to subscribe down below. Drop a like on the video, and I'll see you guys next time.